I'm Gary Anthony Ramsay, and this is your Hour News Now Rewind. Stories making headlines for the week ending December 5th, 2010. Our top stories include Democrats and Republicans brace for a battle on the Bush tax cuts. Congressman Charles Rangel is censured by the House of Representatives for ethics violations. Congress finally approves a $1.1 billion settlement for black farmers. An Oregon teenager from Somalia pleads not guilty after being arrested in an alleged plot to blow up a car at a holiday festival. The Ivory Coast and Haiti erupt in violence as election results are challenged. And a Chicago icon of preserving black history passes away. Our top story. The House of Representatives passes a measure that would end the Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest of Americans while extending them for people making less than $250,000 a year. But the measure appears dead on arrival in the Senate, where all Republicans and even some Democrats still say raising taxes of any kind in this economy would be a bad idea. The president has signaled that he might cave to Republicans on this issue, possibly by extending the cuts for all Americans for a year or two. The White House has little time, as Democratic control of the Senate will shift with the new year, and Republicans had vowed to block all legislation until the tax issue is resolved. Well, Congress failed to reach a deal that would have extended unemployment benefits that expired on December 1st. More than 2 million Americans are affected. Republicans blocked legislation that would have extended the benefits because they still say Democrats are failing to show how they'll pay for the $80 billion the extensions will cost. Congress did act in the case of Congressman Charles Rangel. The House of Representatives voted to censure the veteran lawmaker for ethics violations. Rangel made an impassioned plea for leniency on the floor of the House before the punishment was announced.
That at no time has it ever entered my mind to enrich myself or to do violence to the honesty that's expected of all of us in this House.
Only 22 members of Congress have ever been censured, which is just shy of being expelled. The 80-year-old Rangel was once chairman of the powerful House Ways and Means Committee and was just re-elected to his seat last month. Well, Congress also approved an historic settlement for black farmers. The House signed the $1.1 billion measure that will settle a 13-year-old lawsuit against the government. The settlement was passed despite some loud protests by Republicans, some who referred to the measure as rife with fraud. Black farmers successfully proved that the U.S. Department of Agriculture discriminated against black farmers for decades. The measure passed along with a bill that will pay $3.2 billion to Native Americans who were cheated out of gas rights from their land. In Oregon, a Somali-born teenager remains behind bars after pleading not guilty to an alleged plot to blow up a car near a tree lighting ceremony. According to investigators, 19-year-old Mohammed Osman Mohamud was frantically pressing a cell phone trying to detonate what he thought were 6 55-gallon drums of explosives. The FBI says all of the drums were duds, as they were tipped off to the alleged intentions by a civilian weeks before. Mohammed's lawyer says his client was set up by the government and there are holes in their case. The FBI says they believe Mohammed was acting alone and not at the direction of any international terrorist group. In New Orleans, a former cop is sentenced to 8 years in prison for his role in a post-Katrina shooting that left 2 African Americans dead and 4 others injured. Michael Hunter pleaded guilty to obstruction in the 2005 deaths of 40-year-old Ronald Madison and 17-year-old James Brissett. Both men were unarmed when cops shot them after claiming they were under fire on the Danziger Bridge. 6 other New Orleans cops are set to stand trial in June for the shootings. Hunter's 8-year sentence could be cut short if he testifies against the other officers, which he is expected to do. In Oklahoma, outrage over pictures on a convicted killer's Facebook page, as he appears to be smoking marijuana and partying with other inmates. Justin Walker was convicted in the 2001 killing of an Oklahoma sheriff's deputy and is serving a 30-year sentence. But Walker, who is an alleged member of the Aryan Brotherhood, could be seen on his page smoking out of what looks like a bong, holding bottles of alcohol, and licking a knife. The cop killer, whose Facebook name was Just N Walk, apparently uploaded the pictures to the site with a BlackBerry. He was being held in a medium security facility before the publicity. Now all of his contraband has been seized according to prison authorities. The page has been disabled by Facebook, and Walker is now in a maximum security prison. In your Hour News Now World Wrap, the Ivory Coast closes its border after election results are met with anger and protest. The historic election, which was supposed to unify this long-divided country, has now pushed it into more uncertainty. After days of delay in counting the results, officials announced that leading opposition leader Alassane Ouattara was the winner over current President Laurent Gbagbo. Gbagbo and his supporters have declared the election a fraud, and that set off violent riots that have left opposition supporters dead. The government has issued a curfew and blocked all foreign news broadcasts. In Haiti, there are election troubles as well, as 12 of 18 candidates there are asking that the election results be thrown out after what they describe as widespread fraud. While the country still wrangles with a deadly cholera outbreak and the problems left behind from a deadly earthquake in January, protesters continue to rail against the results, which would keep the party of current President René Préval in power. The election was riddled with problems, according to international monitoring groups, but the Organization of American States Caribbean Community said the problems were not widespread and the results were valid. On the Korean Peninsula, a combustible international game of chicken continues as South Korea and the United States conduct military exercises in the Yellow Sea just weeks after the North Korean military attacks an island in the south. The assault killed 2 soldiers and 2 civilians on the island of Yongpyong. Since then, the USS George Washington and 4 U.S. Navy ships have moved to the region to take part in the exercises, which the North is calling provocative. China has called for international talks and restraint to keep the matter from escalating. This is the 3rd deadly exchange between North and South Korea in a year, but the first in a decade in which civilians were killed. The president makes a surprise trip to Afghanistan, days before an important review about the conflict, which has lasted 9 years. Barack Obama made the trip to personally thank U.S. soldiers for their service during the holidays.
Selfless service shows who we are, who we always will be, united as one people and united as one nation. For you embody and stand up for the values that make us what we are as a people.
But a scheduled meeting with Afghan President Hamid Karzai had to be canceled because of bad weather. The president was on the ground in Afghanistan for a total of 3 hours. That's your World Wrap. In business news, a leading drug company has chosen an African-American lawyer to lead it. Merck, the world's 2nd largest pharmaceutical company behind Pfizer, has elected 55-year-old Kenneth Frazier as chief executive officer. Frazier is a Harvard Law School grad and joined the company in 1992. He's credited with saving the company billions after organizing a settlement in the wake of the Vioxx recall. And finally, she was an author, teacher, and writer. But moreover, she was an enthusiastic preserver of African American history. Margaret Burroughs died in her sleep after a long and pronounced life. Burroughs and her husband started Chicago's DuSable Museum of African American History in their living room back in 1961. It has since grown to its current landmark status. She was a Chicago Park District Commissioner and worked until the last few days of her life. Margaret Burroughs was 95. For a complete look at any of the stories you've seen on The Rewind, remember, as always, go to the bottom of the webpage, find the link of the story you'd like to see, and click your way through. That's your Hour News Now Rewind for this week. I'm Gary Anthony Ramsay.